Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends. The new patch brings new characters, and this video will be a showcase for Judh, the Genestealer Cult Kelermorph. The Kelermorph is a unique Genestealer hybrid that served as a hero figure for the Genestealer Cult as they fought the shackles of their tyrannical oppressors. The Kelermorph is characterized by legendary prowess as a gunslinger, and we see that translated well to game. Judh is an epic unlock through the Battle Pass and will also have a survival event. I really like the art and animation that Snowprint have managed, and I'm particularly fond of the fact that when you trigger Judh's attack animation, a third arm seemingly appears out of nowhere to fire away. She has two traits, the Ambush trait that belongs to the Genestealer Cult faction, and the Beast Slayer trait. The stats on screen are Diamond 3. I'll take a closer look later on to show you how this compares to other characters in the game. The Kelermorph has a base movement speed of 3. She has a 3-hit projectile attack for both melee and ranged attacks. I'll quickly point out that Judh is a double weapon character and has a crit booster, much like Calandus. This reflects her offensive output. Judh can't use guns, just knives or bone swords, so her critical hit chance is slightly lower than Calandus, but the damage on crit is higher. Judh's active ability is called Heroic Fusillade. There is a lot of text here, but basically Judh attacks an enemy within range with an attack that hits the primary target as well as enemies adjacent to that primary target. If Judh scores a critical hit with his attack, then it does bonus damage based on the number of free hexes around the target. If Judh is resurrected, this ability can be used again. The passive is hypersensory abilities. The first time Judh is attacked each turn, she cannot fall below 50% of her current health. After that, she moves to a free adjacent hex, places a decoy on her old spot, and then tries to attack the aggressor if she is still within range. The abilities are pretty easy to understand, but let's look at the gameplay clips before we delve into the math and analysis. Harkin is here as the enemy, as his stats are roughly average health and armor for playable characters at the moment. You can see that as Judh moves in to make her Heroic Fusillade, she's able to move and then jump a further 2 hexes to attack, effectively giving this ability a range of 6. We'll crunch the numbers later, but against a so-called standard enemy, it doesn't look particularly impressive. In this second clip, you can see that Judh does area of effect damage to all of the enemies around the initial target, as described by her active. The passive ability is demonstrated here. When you mouse over with Snotflogga on Judh, it looks like you can kill her in one shot. In reality, her passive stops the incoming damage, moves her away 1 hex, creates a decoy, and Judh fires back at the orc. As you can see here, the grot that is summoned through Snotflogga's attack is based on Judh's new hex. There are lots of funny interactions with this passive and other abilities. I won't go over every single nuance, but hopefully you get the point. The passive is pretty cool because it means that if you attack Judh only once each turn, it takes forever to kill her, because the maximum damage that she can take in one turn from a single hit is 50% of her current health. Eventually, when she does get to 1 health, she does die to that final hit. It's worth reminding ourselves that the passive only triggers on enemies' turns, not our turn. So, if we run into an Overwatch ability, well, let's just say that the Genestealer Cult characters don't really have a huge amount of health. Probably the place to start our analysis is looking at critical hits, because this character is so reliant on it and there aren't many characters in the game with multiple weapons. Crit chains in Tacticus apply through a concept I have previously discussed called a Markov chain. Essentially, each hit checks to see if the chain continues or the crits stop, so it's generally better to equip the higher crit chance weapons. Judh can be given 2 weapons and the critical hit chance is calculated as shown. We essentially work out the chance to not crit, multiply those 2 numbers together, and subtract that from 1. Then you add the crit booster chance for that final critical hit total. For a legendary Judh with the highest crit chance possible, you end up with 48%. The crit damage is simply a sum of all of the crit damage from your weapons and boosters. The math for the active ability isn't too impressive. I put the active ability at max level versus a standard Diamond 3 character to see how things shape out when everything is even. If the ability doesn't crit, then we are looking at roughly 23% of an average opponent's health. The active ability benefits from buffs, so if we add her alongside Isaac, the Genestealer Cult Primus, things look a bit more favourable. Things are even better still when we add in Holland's buff too. Here you can see the chance for Judh to achieve a critical hit, assuming double bone sword and max rarities. You can see how despite starting at 48%, the chance to achieve successive crits drops down quite quickly. The crit chance can be boosted by Ethana, which improves your chances slightly. I've worked with Towen, Tacticus Ambassador and Friend to come up with this graph. We've seen this style of graph before, but I'll just remind you of the colours. Blue is how much health the character has, green is the base ability damage against that character's health and armor stat, yellow is how much damage the ability does with 3 crits and 3 empty hexes next to the target, red is how much the ability does with 6 crits and 3 empty hexes next to the target. It looks like when she crits, Judh can kill most characters with her active. However, you have to remember that unsupported, Judh only has an 11% chance to score 3 crits and a 1% chance to score 6 crits. In my brief testing of this character, I've generally been underwhelmed by the damage output on the active, and you can see the non-crit hits in green, which mostly just tickles enemy characters. One of the common questions I get asked is how does the enemy AI control her on defense? I have running on screen a couple of AI versus AI battles. Judh is on both teams and as you can see here, uses her active ability fairly liberally. Having talked through her kit and showcased her abilities, here is a summary slide that shows the abilities and stats of Judh at various cutoffs. Feel free to pause or screenshot if you'd like. The character is summarized on screen in my usual infographic style. The numbers on the right are at Diamond 3. Towen, Tacticus Ambassador and Friend has run those comparatively against the existing characters. Much like the other Genestealer Cult characters, Judh's stats are on the lower end defensively, and this reflects that you essentially have to kill her twice due to her ambush mechanic. That leads us to consider where the character might shine. Let's start with Horde modes. Judh isn't the most durable and her kit isn't really designed to take out multiple enemies repeatedly over a grindy battle. I've given her a 1.5 here. What about War? I think Judh will be reasonable within the Genestealer Cult team and provide them with a source of burst damage. She isn't a linchpin in the team though, and they can still work reasonably well without her. I've given her a 3 here. Finally, Guild Raids. Only doing 3 hits and having low pierce really hurts Judh. I can't see her fitting into any particularly good teams, so I've given her a 1. Clearly the way this character is set up is to try and achieve critical hits, and she probably functions as the damage dealer within the GSC team. You can look at characters like Ulf and Njal, who apply the Ice Hex effect, which cause units to take critical hit damage. Ethana is another nice consideration because she increases critical hit chance. There you go, another showcase. Thanks as always to my Patreons for their support, and bye for now.